The message came on a Tuesday morning, and it changed everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. Director Park Yuna was drinking her third cup of coffee when her assistant ran into the office. The young man was pale and shaking. He could not speak at first. He simply pointed at the main screen on the wall. The symbols were strange. They moved and shifted like living things. But the translation software that Earth's scientists had been secretly developing for decades worked perfectly. The message was clear. Primitive species designated human. You have entered Galactic Concord space without permission. You will send representatives to Harmony Prime Station within 30 rotations. You will discuss terms of integration into the Concord as a tributary species. Failure to comply will result in immediate correction. Yuna read the message 3 times. She did not panic. She had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. The Galactic Concord was not a surprise to humanity. Earth's deep space telescopes had detected alien communications over a century ago. The governments of the world had kept this secret from the public. They had listened. They had learned. They had prepared. The Concord was an alliance of 47 species that controlled most of the galaxy. They called themselves peaceful. They claimed to bring order and civilization to younger races. But humanity had intercepted enough messages to know the truth. The Concord was a machine that ate smaller civilizations. Species that joined willingly became servants. Species that refused were erased from existence. Yuna picked up her phone and made one call. Admiral Kwan, it is time. On the other side of the world, Admiral Kwan Do-hyun received the call in the middle of a training exercise. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He had spent his entire career preparing for a war that most people did not know was coming. I understand, he said simply. I will begin final preparations. He ended the call and looked out the window of his command center. In the distance, hidden behind holographic camouflage that made it look like empty sky, the orbital shipyards held humanity's greatest secret. The Eternal Vigilance was not a ship. It was a statement. It was 90 kilometers of metal and fury, built over 3 generations by workers who knew they might never see it used. Every nation on Earth had contributed. Every scientist, engineer, and soldier had given something to its creation. The ship had weapons that could crack planets. It had shields that bent space itself. It had engines that could cross the galaxy in weeks. And it had been waiting, silent and patient, for the day when humanity would need to show the universe what it was truly capable of. Do-hyun walked to the transport that would take him to orbit. His crew was already assembling. 12,000 men and women who had trained their entire lives for this mission. Back in her office, Yuna called an emergency meeting of the World Security Council. The leaders of every major nation appeared on screens around her conference room. Some looked afraid. Some looked excited. All of them understood what was at stake. The Concord has given us 30 days, Yuna explained. They expect us to send diplomats who will beg for mercy. They expect us to be weak and afraid. They have made the same mistake that every bully makes. They have judged us by our size instead of our spirit. The president of the European Federation leaned forward. What do you recommend, Director? We give them exactly what they expect, Yuna said. We send a diplomatic team. We act humble and cooperative. And then we show them what we have been building. Is the vigilance ready? The Chinese premier asked. Admiral Kwan confirms full operational status. The crew is boarding now. We can deploy within 72 hours. There was silence in the room. These leaders had known about the ship for years. They had approved budgets and assigned resources. But hearing that it was finally ready made the situation feel real in a way it had not before. What about the other ships? The American president asked. 17 more in various stages of construction, Yuna confirmed. 4 could be combat ready within 6 months. The rest will take longer. but the vigilance alone should be enough for the first contact. She pulled up a holographic display showing the Concorde's known military forces. Thousands of ships spread across hundreds of star systems. It looked overwhelming. Their numbers are impressive, Yuna admitted, but our intelligence suggests their technology has not advanced significantly in thousands of years. They became comfortable. They stopped innovating. They assumed no one would ever challenge them. She zoomed in on the vigilance, showing its weapon systems. Our plasma cannons operate at temperatures they cannot shield against. Our missiles use dimensional folding to bypass their defenses. Our fighters are faster and more maneuverable than anything they have. One of our ships is worth 1,000 of theirs. The Indian Prime Minister spoke carefully. And if they simply destroy our delegation before we can reveal the vigilance? They will not, Yuna said confidently. The Concorde loves ceremony. They love watching species submit. They will want to savor our surrender. That arrogance will be their weakness. The meeting continued for hours. Plans were reviewed. Contingencies were discussed. By the end, every leader had agreed to the strategy. Humanity would walk into the trap, and then humanity would spring a trap of its own. In orbit, Admiral Do-Yun stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance for the first time since its completion. The ship hummed with power. Screens showed status reports from every system. Everything was green. Everything was ready. His executive officer, Commander Lee Minji, approached with a tablet. All crew members are aboard, Admiral. Weapons are charged. Engines are hot. We are ready for your orders. Do-Hyun looked at the main view screen. Earth hung below them, blue and green and beautiful. 8 billion people lived on that small world. They went to work and school. They fell in love and raised families. Most of them had no idea that their entire civilization had just been threatened with extinction. They are counting on us, Do-Hyun said quietly. Every person on that planet, every child who will ever be born, they are all counting on us to keep them safe. We will not fail them, Admiral, Minji said. Do-Hyun nodded slowly. No, we will not. He turned to face his crew. These were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. They had given up normal lives to serve on a ship that was meant to fight aliens most people did not believe existed. Set course for the rendezvous point, Do-Hyun ordered. We will wait there until the diplomatic team is in position, and then we will show the galaxy what humanity is made of. The Eternal Vigilance moved silently through the darkness of space, carrying the hopes of an entire species into the unknown. The diplomatic shuttle Olive Branch was small on purpose. Director Yuna had insisted on it. She wanted the aliens to see humans arriving in a tiny vessel. She wanted them to feel superior. Overconfident enemies made mistakes. Senior diplomat Choi Ji-won sat in the main cabin, reviewing her notes for the 100th time. She was 53 years old and had spent her entire career ending conflicts. She had negotiated peace treaties between nations that had been fighting for centuries. She had talked warlords into surrendering without firing a shot. But this was different. This was not human against human. This was humanity against the galaxy. Beside her sat Sergeant Beck Suho. He wore a ceremonial uniform and carried no visible weapons. He looked like a simple guard, meant to stand behind the diplomats and look impressive. In reality, he was one of Earth's most dangerous soldiers. His neural implant contained classified military codes that could coordinate the entire human fleet. If something went wrong, he could call down fire from the heavens with a single thought. The rest of the delegation included scientists, translators, and cultural experts. 12 people in total. 12 humans who would face an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. We are approaching Harmony Prime Station, the pilot announced. They are sending docking instructions. Ji-won looked out the window and felt her breath catch in her throat. The station was enormous. It made everything humanity had ever built look like children's toys. Crystal towers stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Ships of every shape and size moved around it like insects around a hive. Lights blinked in patterns that suggested millions of inhabitants. Beautiful, one of the scientists whispered. Impressive, Jiwan corrected. They want us to feel small. Remember that everything you see is designed to intimidate. Do not let it work. The shuttle docked at a port that was clearly meant for unimportant visitors. The hallway beyond was plain and functional, nothing like the grand architecture visible from outside. It was a message. Humans were not worthy of the nice parts of the station. A group of aliens waited to greet them. Jiwan recognized the species from intelligence reports. The leader was a Veeth named Ambassador Tolan. His species was tall and thin, with skin so transparent that you could see light pulsing through organs beneath. When Veeth were happy, they glowed bright. When they were angry or afraid, they went dark. Tolan glowed with smug satisfaction as the humans approached. Behind him stood two Kreth guards. They were insectoid creatures with hard shells and multiple limbs. Their mandibles clicked constantly, making sounds that the translator turned into something like laughter. "The primitive species arrives," Tolan announced. His voice was musical, almost hypnotic. "Welcome to Harmony Prime, little humans. We are pleased you have accepted our invitation." Jiwan bowed politely. "Thank you for receiving us, Ambassador. Earth is honored by this opportunity for dialogue." Tolan's glow brightened with amusement. Dialogue. Yes, we will have much to discuss. He began walking, clearly expecting the humans to follow. "Tell me, diplomat, what do your people know of the Galactic Concord?" "Very little," Jiwan lied smoothly. "We have only recently developed faster-than-light travel. The universe is still new to us." "How fortunate that you encountered us then. The Concord brings order to chaos. We guide younger species toward their proper place in the galaxy. Under our protection, your people will thrive." They passed through corridors filled with aliens of dozens of different species. Most ignored the humans completely. A few stared with curiosity. One group of small, furry creatures looked at them with something like pity. "Your proper place," Jiwan repeated carefully. "And what place would that be, Ambassador?" Tolan stopped walking and turned to face her. His luminescent organs pulsed with condescension. "Humanity is young and weak. You have no great fleets, no powerful weapons, no ancient wisdom. You will serve the Concord as a tributary species. You will provide labor and resources. In exchange, we will protect you from the dangers of the galaxy." "I see. And if we decline this generous offer?" The Kreth guards clicked their mandibles again. Tolan's glow dimmed slightly. "That would be unwise. Species that refuse integration are deemed threats to galactic peace. Threats are eliminated." Jiwan nodded as if this was perfectly reasonable. "Thank you for explaining. We will certainly consider all options carefully." They arrived at the negotiation chamber. It was a circular room with a high ceiling and walls covered in screens, showing the flags and symbols of all 47 Concord species. The human delegation was led to a small table near the edge of the room. The Concord representatives sat on an elevated platform looking down at them. More aliens filed in to watch. This was apparently entertainment for them. They wanted to see another species submit. The eldest Mordani in the assembly spoke first. The Mordani were ancient beings who had transferred their consciousness into mechanical bodies millions of years ago. This one was designated Prime 7, and its metal frame was covered in symbols that represented its authority. "Humanity," Prime 7's voice echoed from speakers throughout the room. "You stand before the Galactic Concord. You have been offered membership as a tributary species. Do you accept these terms?" Jiwan stood slowly. She looked around the room at all the faces watching her. Some were curious. Some were bored. Some were hungry, like predators waiting for prey to stop struggling. "Distinguished members of the Concord," she began. "Humanity is grateful for this opportunity. We have traveled far to meet you. We have much to learn about the galaxy and its ways." Toland's glow brightened. The Kreth clicked approvingly. Even Prime 7's optical sensors seemed to focus with satisfaction. "However," Jiwan continued, "we did not come here to surrender." The room went silent. Toland's light flickered with confusion. "Humanity is young, this is true. But we are not weak, we are not helpless, and we are certainly not stupid." Jiwan's voice remained calm and professional. "We know about the harvest. We know about the culling. We know exactly what the Concord does to species that join and species that refuse." Prime 7's mechanical body shifted. "You know nothing primitive. You have no ships. You have no power. You are making a grave error." "Perhaps," Jiwan agreed, "or perhaps you are the ones who have made an error. You invited us here expecting frightened children. You thought we would beg for mercy." She smiled slightly. "We came to introduce ourselves properly, and we brought a gift." She touched her earpiece. "Director Park, they are ready." Across the room, every screen suddenly changed. Instead of Concord symbols, they showed a live feed of empty space, empty except for a small point of light that was growing larger. "What is this?" Toland demanded. "This," Jiwan said, "is humanity saying hello." And then the eternal vigilance appeared, and everything the Concord believed about the universe shattered in an instant. Space tore open like a wound in reality. The concealment field had hidden the eternal vigilance for 3 days. The ship had been waiting just 12,000 kilometers from Harmony Prime Station, invisible to every sensor the Concord possessed. Now that invisibility ended, and the galaxy saw what humanity had created. Admiral Kwon Do-yun watched the alien station through the main view screen. Warning lights were flashing everywhere on Harmony Prime. Ships were scrambling in all directions. He could imagine the panic spreading through those crystal corridors. "Open communications," he ordered. "All frequencies. I want every being on that station to hear this." Commander Lee Minji nodded and activated the broadcast system. "This is Admiral Kwon Do-yun of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Eternal Vigilance," he announced. His voice was calm and steady. He had practiced this speech 1,000 times. "We come in peace, but we are prepared for war." On the station, chaos had erupted. Ambassador Toland stared at the view screens with his luminescence completely dark. He had never experienced true fear before. His species had been members of the Concord for 8,000 years. They had never faced a threat they could not handle. They had never seen anything like the monster that now hung in space before them. The Eternal Vigilance was 90 kilometers long. Its hull was covered in weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. Its engines burned with a light brighter than stars. It did not look like a ship. It looked like a god of war given physical form. "That is impossible," Prime 7 calculated rapidly. "No species developed such technology in a single century. The resources required would be beyond any young civilization." "Apparently not," Jiwan said quietly. She was the only human in the room who did not seem surprised. Of course she was not surprised. She had known exactly what was coming. The Kreth warriors had drawn weapons, but they did not know where to point them. The humans in the room were not threats. The threat was outside, too large and too powerful to fight. Admiral Do-hyun continued his broadcast. "For 37 years, humanity has monitored Concord communications. We have learned your languages. We have studied your technology. We have watched how you treat species weaker than yourselves." On the screens, the vigilance rotated slowly, showing its full profile. Weapon ports opened along its entire length, revealing hundreds of cannons, missile tubes, and devices that the Concord sensors could not identify. "We know about the harvest," Do-hyun said. the tributary species you exploit for labor and resources. We know about the culling, the civilizations you have erased because they refuse to submit. We have records of 17 species that once existed and now do not, because the Concord decided they were inconvenient. Tolan finally found his voice. Those were necessary actions. Those species threatened galactic peace. They threatened your power, Do-hyun corrected. There is a difference. In the negotiation chamber, Ji-won watched the Concord delegates carefully. The fear was spreading. Species that had never worried about anything were suddenly realizing that the universe was not as safe as they had believed. We did not want this, Ji-won said softly. We hoped that when we made contact, we would find friends, partners, equals. Instead, we found an empire that demands submission and punishes resistance with extinction. She gestured at the screens showing the vigilance. So we prepared. For 3 generations, humanity worked in secret. Every nation contributed. Every scientist, engineer, and worker gave their effort to this project. We built a ship that could fight the entire Concord and win. One ship, Prime 7 interjected. Its mechanical voice held a note of desperation. You have one ship. We have hundreds of thousands. You are correct, Ji-won acknowledged. Today we have one ship, but our industrial capacity doubles every 8 years. The Vigilance took 30 years to build. The next one will take 15. The one after that will take 7. Give us a century, and we will have a fleet that makes yours look like toys. She let that sink in before continuing. But we did not come here to threaten you. We came to offer something better. Admiral Do-hyun spoke again from the Vigilance. Humanity proposes a new relationship between our species and the Concord, not as masters and servants, not as predators and prey, as equals. Equals? Tolan's luminescence flickered with disbelief. You are children. Your civilization is barely 1,000 years old. Age does not equal wisdom, Do-hyun replied. The Mordani are millions of years old, and they still participate in slavery. The Veeth have existed for hundreds of thousands of years, and they still exploit weaker species for profit. Perhaps the galaxy needs fresh eyes. On the station, the Kreth war leader stepped forward. Its mandibles clicked aggressively. We should attack now. Destroy this human ship before they can build more. Our combined fleets can overwhelm any single vessel. Prime 7's sensors focused on the Vigilance, analyzing everything they could detect. I am reading weapon signatures unlike anything in our databases. Shield frequencies that should not be possible. If we attack and fail, the consequences would be catastrophic. You will fail, Ji-won said simply. Our weapons operate on principles your science does not understand. Our shields can withstand anything you throw at them, and our admiral has orders to respond to any attack with immediate and overwhelming force. She paused to let the weight of her words settle. Harmony Prime Station houses 12 million inhabitants. If you attack the Vigilance, Admiral Kwon will reduce this station to atoms. Then he will visit every Concord homeworld and do the same, one by one, until there is no Concord left. Silence filled the chamber. The Kreth war leader lowered its weapons. The other delegates looked at each other with growing horror. You would commit genocide? Prime 7 asked. We would defend ourselves, Ji-won replied. We did not start this confrontation. You summoned us here with threats and demands. You made it clear that our only options were submission or death. We are simply showing you that there is a third option. Admiral Do-hyun spoke one final time. Humanity offers peace, genuine peace, between equals. The harvest ends, the culling ends. Species currently under conquered control will be given the choice to stay or leave. Trade will be fair. Diplomacy will be honest. And no one will ever be threatened with extinction again. His voice hardened slightly. Or you can choose war. And you can discover exactly what humanity is capable of when we stop being polite. The screens showed the Vigilance in all its terrible glory. 90 kilometers of human determination and ingenuity. A monument to what a species could achieve when it refused to accept its own destruction. Jawan looked at Ambassador Tolan. "The choice is yours, Ambassador. What will the conquered decide?" Tolan's luminescence slowly returned, though it was pale and weak. He looked around the room at his fellow delegates. They were all waiting for someone else to speak first. No one wanted to be the one to admit defeat. But defeat was exactly what this was. The Concord had ruled through fear for 12,000 years. And now they had met a species that was not afraid. "We will need time to discuss," Tolan finally managed. "This is not a decision that can be made quickly." "Take all the time you need," Jiwon said graciously. "The Vigilance will remain nearby to ensure our safety during negotiations." She did not add that the ship would also serve as a constant reminder of what humanity could do if the negotiations failed. She did not need to. Everyone in the room understood perfectly. The balance of power in the galaxy had just changed forever. The emergency session of the High Assembly lasted for 6 days. Representatives from all 47 Concord species argued, debated, and threatened each other constantly. Some wanted to attack the humans immediately. Some wanted to surrender. Most simply could not believe what was happening. For 12,000 years, the Concord had been the supreme power in the galaxy. They had never faced a serious challenge. They had forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. Now they remembered. Ambassador Tolan had not slept since the Eternal Vigilance appeared. His luminescence had stabilized, but it remained dim. He stood before the assembled delegates and delivered his report. "Our analysts have studied the human vessel extensively," he said. "Their weapons use plasma heated to temperatures our shields cannot deflect. Their missiles can fold through dimensional space to bypass defenses entirely. Their fighters, which remain inside the main ship, are faster than anything in our inventory." He paused, struggling with the next words. "One human vessel could destroy our entire combined fleet. And they claim to have 17 more under construction." The Kreth war leader slammed its clawed limb against the table. "Then we must strike now, before they build more. Mobilize every ship we have. Attack their homeworld. Destroy their shipyards." "With what?" Prime 7's mechanical voice cut through the noise. "The Vigilance is positioned between us and their solar system. Any fleet we send would have to pass it first. Based on our analysis, we would lose every ship before a single one reached Earth. Then we send ships from multiple directions. Overwhelm them with numbers. They have faster-than-light communications," Tolan reminded him. "They would see our fleets coming days in advance, and their ship is faster than ours. They could intercept each fleet individually." The chamber fell into frustrated silence. On Earth, Director Park Yuna monitored the debates through hidden sensors the diplomatic team had planted. She sat in her office with Admiral Do-yun attending via holographic projection from the Vigilance. "They are breaking," Yuna observed. "The war faction is losing support." "Their tactical analysis is correct," Do-yun confirmed. "A direct assault would be suicide. They know it. They just do not want to admit it." Yuna nodded slowly. "What about their other options? Could they poison our food supplies? Release biological weapons? Attack our colonies?" "Possibly. But any such attack would trigger immediate retaliation. We have made it clear that we will respond to any aggression with overwhelming force. They must decide if revenge is worth the extinction of their species. Most species choose survival. Most species have never been in this position before." Back on Harmony Prime, the debates continued. The Mordani Prime 7 had been calculating probabilities for days. Its ancient mind processed thousands of scenarios, looking for any path that led to conquered victory. It found none. "We must accept the human terms," Prime 7 finally announced. Our analysis indicates a 0% chance of military success. Continued resistance will only delay the inevitable and increase casualties. Cowardice, the Kreth war leader spat. Logic, Prime 7 corrected. The Concord has survived for 12,000 years because we adapt. We absorbed species that could benefit us. We eliminated species that threatened us. Now we face a species we cannot absorb or eliminate. The only remaining option is negotiation. But their terms are outrageous, Tolan protested. They want us to release all tributary species. They want to end the harvest. They want equal representation in a new governing council. If we agree, we lose everything that makes the Concord powerful. We have already lost, Prime 7 said bluntly. The question is whether we accept that loss gracefully or fight until we are destroyed. The chamber erupted into arguments again. Species that had been allies for millennia turned against each other. Old resentments surfaced. The unity that had held the Concord together began to crack. Ji-won watched from the human delegation's quarters. Suho stood beside her, monitoring communications. This could go badly, he said quietly. If the Concord falls apart completely, we might face dozens of individual species acting independently. That could be more dangerous than a unified enemy. Director Park anticipated this, Ji-won replied. Our goal is not to destroy the Concord. It is to transform it. We want them to accept new terms, not collapse into chaos. How do we achieve that? Ji-won smiled slightly. We give them something they want more than power. We give them security. She activated a communication channel to the assembly chamber. Distinguished delegates, her voice echoed through the room. Humanity requests permission to address the assembly directly. The arguing stopped. All eyes turned to the screens showing Ji-won's face. Permission granted, Prime 7 said after a moment. Ji-won stood and faced the camera. Behind her, the human delegation arranged themselves in a display of unity. We understand your concerns, Ji-won began. The Concord has maintained order in this galaxy for thousands of years. You fear that changing your system will lead to chaos. You fear that releasing tributary species will create enemies. You fear that humanity will eventually turn against you. She paused to let those fears be acknowledged. These are reasonable concerns, and we have answers for each of them. Director Yuna's face appeared on screens beside Ji-won. The Concord will not be dismantled, Yuna announced. It will be reformed. Tributary species will be offered freedom, but they will also be offered membership as equals. We believe most will choose to remain if they are treated with respect. The harvest will end, but trade will continue. Fair trade, where both sides benefit. Humanity will share technologies that can increase productivity without exploitation. Your economies will adapt and ultimately strengthen. And humanity will guarantee the security of any species that joins the reformed Concord. The Vigilance and its sister ships will protect the Alliance, not threaten it. Any external enemy that attacks a member species will face human retaliation. The delegates listened in stunned silence. We do not want to rule the galaxy, Yuna continued. We want to live in it peacefully. But peace requires justice. Peace requires equality. The old Concord was built on fear and oppression. The new Concord will be built on mutual respect and shared benefit. You ask us to trust you, Tolan said slowly, but you arrived with the largest warship the galaxy has ever seen. Why should we believe your intentions are peaceful? Ji-won answered that question. Because we could have destroyed you already. We could have attacked without warning. Instead, we came to talk. We revealed our capabilities so that you would understand the situation clearly. We gave you a choice. She looked directly into the camera, speaking to every species watching. The Concord never gave its victims a choice. You demanded surrender or death. You erased entire civilizations because they refused to kneel. Humanity is offering something different. We are offering partnership." The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Prime 7 spoke. "The Assembly will vote. All species will have equal voice in this decision, regardless of their current status. This seems appropriate given the circumstances." The vote took 2 hours. Species argued among themselves. Some changed their positions multiple times. But when the final count was announced, the result was clear. 39 species voted to accept the human terms. 8 voted to reject. The 8 rejections came from species that had benefited most from the old system. They would have to be watched carefully in the coming years. "The Galactic Concord accepts humanity's proposal," Prime 7 announced formally. "Negotiations will begin immediately to establish the specific terms of our new alliance." Jiwan allowed herself a small smile. The first step was complete. But she knew the hard work was just beginning. Treaties were just words on paper. True peace would take decades to build. On the Vigilance, Admiral Do-hyun received the news with a simple nod. He had prepared for war. He was relieved to pursue peace instead. "Stand down from combat alert," he ordered. "But maintain full readiness. This is not over yet." Commander Minji raised an eyebrow. "You do not trust them, Admiral?" "I trust that they will act in their own interests," Do-hyun replied. "Right now, their interests align with peace, but interests change. We must remain strong enough to ensure they never change too much." He looked at the station through the view screen. Millions of aliens were learning that the universe had new rules now. Some would accept those rules, some would resist, but all of them would have to live with the consequences of this day. The Treaty of Harmony was signed 47 days after the Eternal Vigilance first appeared. The ceremony took place in the same chamber where the Concord had planned to accept humanity's surrender. Now the room was decorated differently. Human flags hung beside those of every member species. The elevated platform had been removed. All delegations sat at equal height around a circular table. Senior diplomat Choi Ji-won signed on behalf of Earth. Her hand was steady as she pressed her seal to the document. 3 generations of preparation had led to this moment. Billions of humans had worked and sacrificed so that their species could face the galaxy as equals instead of slaves. Ambassador Tolan signed for the Veeth Dominion. His luminescence had recovered somewhat over the past weeks, though it never quite reached its former brightness. He had aged, or whatever his species called the process. The confidence that had once defined him was gone, replaced by something more careful and cautious. "It is done," Prime 7 announced when the last signature was complete. "The Galactic Concord is hereby reformed under new principles. All member species are equal partners. The harvest is abolished. The practice of culling is forbidden. Any species that wishes to leave may do so without penalty." The chamber filled with applause and clicks and chirps, and a dozen other sounds that represented approval in different cultures. Jiwan did not celebrate. She knew this was only the beginning. After the ceremony, she found herself standing on an observation deck with Tolan. The Eternal Vigilance was visible through the window, still hanging in space nearby. It would remain there for the foreseeable future. A constant reminder of humanity's capabilities. "You could have destroyed us," Tolan said quietly. It was not the first time he had made this observation. "Your admiral made it clear that your weapons could sterilize every Concord homeworld in a matter of weeks." "We could have," Ji-won agreed, "but that was never what we wanted." "What did you want?" Ji-won considered the question carefully. "Safety, respect, a place in the galaxy where we could grow without being threatened. But more than that, we wanted to prove something." "Prove what?" "That strength does not have to mean cruelty. That power does not have to mean oppression." She turned to face Tolan directly. "Your Concord ruled through fear. You crushed anyone who might someday challenge you. But fear is a weak foundation. It breeds resentment. It creates enemies. Eventually, it collapses. Toland's organs flickered. And you believe your way is better? I believe it has a chance to last. The new Concord is built on mutual benefit. Every species gains from membership. Every species has a voice in decisions. When people feel respected, they do not rebel. When people feel valued, they do not plot revenge. A pleasant theory. But theories often fail when tested against reality. Jiwan smiled slightly. Then we will adjust. Humanity is good at adapting. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and nearly destroying our own planet. We learned from each disaster. We got better. We will do the same here. On the other side of the station, Sergeant Beck Suho was having a very different conversation. The Kreth war leader had requested a meeting with the human military officer. Suho had agreed. Curious about what the insectoid warrior wanted to discuss, they met in a small room away from the crowds. The Kreth's mandibles clicked constantly, a sign of agitation in their species. Your species fights strangely, the war leader said through its translator. You build the greatest weapon in galactic history, then refuse to use it. You achieve total victory, then offer generous terms. This makes no sense. Suho leaned back in his chair. It makes perfect sense if you understand our goals. We did not want to conquer the galaxy. We wanted to survive in it. But you could rule. You could take everything. And then what? We would spend centuries fighting rebellions and crushing resistance. We would become exactly what we hated about the Concord. That is not victory. That is a trap. The Kreth considered this for a long moment. My people understand combat. We understand dominance. We do not understand mercy. Maybe that is something we can teach you, Suho said. Mercy is not weakness. It is strength controlled. It is choosing not to destroy something you could easily destroy. It earns more loyalty than fear ever could. You believe this? I have seen it work. On my own planet, nations that showed mercy to defeated enemies built lasting alliances. Nations that crushed their enemies completely eventually fell themselves. History is full of these lessons. The war leader's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Perhaps humans are not as foolish as I believed. We have our moments. Back on Earth, Director Park Yuna watched the treaty ceremony through a live feed. Admiral Kwon Do-hyun stood beside her, having returned briefly to deliver his report in person. The first phase is complete, Yuna said. The Concord has accepted our terms. Tributary species are already receiving notifications of their new status. Many are choosing to remain as equal members. And the 8 species that voted against the treaty? Being monitored carefully. The Mordani have offered to assist with surveillance. They seem to be adapting to the new reality faster than others. Do-hyun nodded slowly. What about our next steps? The Vigilance cannot protect the entire galaxy alone. Yuna pulled up construction schedules on her display. 4 more vessels will be combat-ready within 6 months. 8 more within 2 years. We are also sharing defensive technology with allied species. Within a decade, every member of the new Concord will be able to protect itself. You are building them up instead of keeping them dependent. That is the point. A true alliance requires capable partners. If we kept them weak, we would be no better than the old Concord. Do-hyun studied the plans carefully. There will be resistance. Some species will try to restore the old ways. Some will see our generosity as weakness. We will deal with those challenges as they arise. But I believe the majority will embrace the changes. Being treated with respect is a powerful motivator. 3 months later, the first human ambassador arrived at the former Veeth tributary world of Kalos. Her name was Osomi, and she was 29 years old. She had trained for this mission for 5 years, learning the language and customs of the species she would be working with. The Colossians were small beings with gray skin and large eyes. They had been under Veeth control for 3,000 years. Generations had lived and died, knowing nothing but service to their masters. When Somi's shuttle landed, thousands of Colossians gathered to watch. They did not know what to expect from these strange new creatures called humans. Somi stepped off the shuttle and was immediately struck by how thin everyone looked. The harvest had taken most of their food production for centuries. The people had survived on scraps. "I am Ambassador Somi," she announced through her translator. "I bring greetings from Earth and from the reformed Galactic Concord. Your world is now free. Your people are now equal members of the galactic community." There was no celebration. The Colossians simply stared at her with confusion. An elderly Colossian approached slowly. "We do not understand. The Veeth have always ruled us. We have always served. What does freedom mean?" Somi knelt so that she was at eye level with the old one. "It means you choose your own future. It means no one takes your food or your labor without fair payment. It means your children will grow up knowing they have value beyond what they can produce for others." "And if the Veeth return? If they try to reclaim us?" Somi pointed upward, where the eternal vigilance was visible in orbit. The massive ship had accompanied her to ensure a smooth transition. "Then we will protect you. That ship and its crew exist to ensure that no one is ever enslaved again. You are not alone anymore." The elderly Colossians stared at the ship for a long moment. Then, slowly, tears began to fall from its large eyes. 3,000 years, it whispered. 3,000 years we prayed for salvation. We thought no one was listening, but you were out there all along, building, preparing, waiting. "We were," Somi confirmed, "and now we are here." The Colossians began to cheer. It was a soft sound at first, growing louder as hope spread through the crowd. For the first time in millennia, they believed in a better future. High above, Admiral Do-Yun watched the celebration through the Vigilance's sensors. Commander Minji stood beside him on the bridge. "One world at a time," Minji observed. "It will take years to reach them all." "Then we had better get started," Do-Hyun replied. "Signal the fleet. We have more liberations to conduct." The Eternal Vigilance turned toward its next destination. Behind it, 100 smaller ships followed, carrying teachers, doctors, engineers, and supplies. Humanity had brought a warship to introduce itself to the galaxy, but they had also brought everything needed to rebuild what others had broken, and they were just getting started.